All right, guys, we are 100% about transparency on this channel. We're going to have an oil conversation. I want to start off the video checking the oil. And I didn't pre-check it. It's always a good idea to check your oil, even on a modern vehicle. And I will admit, sometimes, get a little bit sidetracked. Now I have to remember, because I don't change my own oil on my brand new truck. I let Ford do it. Got to look and see and make a fool out of myself. And see if I can find the oil dipstick. Oh, there you are. There you are, sweetie. Now, I haven't checked this. We're about 800 miles from oil change time. So let's see what it looks like. So there's about 4,200 miles on this one. Let me see if I can hold this steady for you fellas. We are pretty clean. It looks pretty good. And it may have consumed just the teeniest amount of oil, and that's assuming that it started off up at the very fullest mark. Come on, sit still. There you go. So you can see that. It is pretty clean. Anywhere in there, you're good to go. Now, does this engine burn any oil? Maybe. Maybe. I wouldn't be concerned about that amount, because if I remember correctly, I always check my oil after I get my oil change to make sure that they did a good job. And if I remember correctly, and this is not scientific at all, but I'm pretty sure it was right about there. So no, I don't think that this engine burns any oil. That is a problem with the 6.6 liter gas Chevys, and I don't believe I've ever heard of that being an issue on a 7.3 liter Ford. And I rarely hear about Ford engines burning oil unless there's something extremely wrong with them. So now we're gonna have an oil conversation now that we've checked the oil and talked a little bit about this truck and where we're at after 4,200 miles of, oil life. So we'll talk. So I actually made this commentary last after making the entire video. I wanted to make sure that I fully developed my opinions or recommendations in this video and didn't just jump to conclusions of simply telling you what to do. I wanted you to have the full background as to what my methodology is, or how I generated any opinion shared in this video. I more than respect your ability to make your own choices. I don't want you to think that I am instructing you on what you should only do. And most importantly, I don't want anyone taking away that just because I have these experiences, that the flip side of the coin of, say, I choose to like to run Mobil 1, that is not saying that Valvoline is somehow a bad oil. That could not be further from the truth. I want you to develop your own experiences and trust with your own oil, or with your own chosen oil brand, so that you can make your own decision. And I simply wanted to make a video sharing my trust in my experiences over the years of using different products and different things. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you enjoy and stick around. I'm very proud of this video, but it is long-winded because I don't think that this subject should be short-winded. It should be fully developed and fully articulated for you to make the best decision that you can. So I hope that you enjoy and take care of yourselves. We cut straight to the chase on this channel. First of all, you have to deal with my voice being a little bit upset, but I still wanted to make this video despite that. What is most concerning and what is most important to you is, especially in oil, you are being marketed to. Not only when you walk into an auto parts store, you're looking at all the different fancy colors and bottles that oil is sold in and all the names, but also look right here at the Tractor Supply Co. tool section. You are being marketed to every single place you go, including where you are in social media. So be very careful with your buying power and make sure that you are buying what is really going to end up helping you or working for you in the long run, not just what looks flashy at a store. You may or may not know how much value service and parts has to a manufacturer. It's known as the aftermarket tail in most cases. In other words, you have a capital sale, which is you buying a car, and then you have the aftermarket tail that comes after it. And it could be for any type of machinery, any type of capital sale. In theory, you have to service and maintain it unless the sale is cloud-based, if you want, software, but then again, you still have to have IT individuals who are maintaining that software. So there's still an aftermarket tail for things like that. Oil, for instance, is something that's required, hopefully, 5,000 miles, as I'm going to mention many times in this video. So you have a captive audience, potentially. If you're going to drive their vehicle, they have to maintain it. So You're going to find your dealer fighting for your trust and your money to service your vehicle, and you're going to find that different aftermarket suppliers who don't make any capital products, who are going to try and tee into the value created by the aftermarket tail to make them a bunch of money. So that is why you're being marketed to. There's a huge amount of value in oils, specifically fluids for vehicles, huge amount of value. That service, as I mentioned, is going to keep going through the whole life of the vehicle. And that is why so much money is spent on marketing of those products. And obviously, you guys may know that. I'm not trying to preach to you like you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But know the position that you're in, and know that there's a lot of, I'm going to call them leeches, who are making, and this is true for aftermarket products, for diesel performance, for gas performance. There are a lot of leeches trying to sell you on things. They don't have to design the vehicle. They don't have to test the vehicle. They don't have to pass any emissions tests. They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is generate a product for you to buy in the aftermarket or in the service sphere. And there is a great deal of margin in that, more margin, I would argue, than the capital sale of your car. OEMs don't make a whole lot of money off the sale of a car by the time it gets to the dealership. Now, they're selling a lot of volume, which obviously makes them a lot of money. I'm not saying they don't make money, but I'm saying that there isn't a huge margin in that product, where oil, there's a lot of margin. And in service, there's a lot of margin in theory, especially if you own the service outfit. So keep that in mind, the amount of value that's being talked about here. A lot of people choose to service their own things to save a bunch of money. I had 3 free oil changes and services. The shop time plus the oil was free to me, given by Ford. I didn't have to pay for it. It wasn't a service contract that I paid for. What it was Ford didn't want to give out the points because people aren't using their point system. So what they did was they just gave them 3 free oil changes on Ford, shop labor included, and I took advantage of those. What I choose to do going forward, I'm going to be thinking about that. I enjoy changing oil, but what I enjoy almost even more is knowing that Ford has the documentation, knowing that the oil has been changed. So we will continue with the video. I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a segue, and like I said, be ready for more long-winded, but I think that this subject deserves long-winded. Take care, all. Trust. Now, trust is something that gets formed over time through experience. If you don't have any experience, that may be why you're looking for what oil you should buy. And you are particularly in a danger zone, if you want, of being potentially receptive to extreme marketing telling you that, oh, one oil is going to blow up your engine, one oil won't, even though both meet the exact same requirements and probably use the same base oil. So we need to form that trust over time. In order for you to do that, well, you're going to have to pick an oil to start buying first. Several realities for you to consider. Many different oils may have similar or nearly identical performance, where one is meeting a specific spec, for instance, the Ford 6.7 Power Stroke spec. You have to pay to meet that spec. So your oil, an oil brand may meet the spec, but they didn't choose to pay the money to be able to put on their bottle that they met the spec. So there are many of those types of situations across the board. So you need to do your specific research on your specific engine if you want to stray from the factory recommended oil for your vehicle, and oil filter, of course, too. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is open up your owner's manual for whatever you own, whether it's a Super Duty, a Dodge product, a Chevy product, whatever the heck it is. And I want you to look at what they recommend, and I want you to ask yourself, do I have a specific reason to go away from this? Some of those reasons may be cost. Maybe the vehicle is out of warranty or it's older and you don't want to pay whatever the money is for that either hard to get oil or just simply more expensive oil. You want to try something a little bit cheaper. Another reason you may want to stray is because you can't buy at your local store. Maybe you live in a small town or something like that. There's Rotella tea sitting on the shelf, and can I use that? As opposed to going and buying the Dello product or whatever in the world your manufacturer recommended that you buy. I am not going to come here and tell you to stray from your owner's manual, because honestly, I don't believe in my heart or in any of my experience that the manufacturer of a product wants your product to break due to the use of their recommended oil. So they're not going to recommend that you use an oil that degrades the workmanship that they put into selling you that product. So I'm not going to tell you to do that. So especially if you're in warranty. Now, the Magnuson Moss Act protects you for modifying your vehicle, and you have to, the manufacturer has to prove that your modification caused the failure. So you need to keep care of records of when you change oil, what mile, what date, and what products you use, and best if you kept your receipts. And if you do that, it is exceedingly unlikely that if you have an engine pop within the warranty period, that you're going to get hit with no coverage simply because you either chose to change your own oil or you chose to use a different oil. Make sure that it meets the spec, though, because, for instance, the 6.7 Power Stroke has a specific spec. Make sure you're meeting that spec with your oil. Do your research for that specific engine need. What prompted the making of this video was being asked by a viewer, and most of my video ideas come directly from my viewers, and to which I truly appreciate you guys. The individual wanted to know, what oil do you run and why? And that is why I'm making this video. These are my opinions based upon my experience putting potentially hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles on one motor using that specific oil. If you're constantly switching oils, it's incredibly difficult to decide, are these oils helping you? And if you did have a failure, let's just say 3,000 miles into a new oil that you tried, I'm going to tell you right now, it's scientifically very unlikely that oil caused the failure. Now, if you put vegetable oil in your engine instead of using normal oil, well, that might have caused the failure. But if you're using the right weight, and if you're using an oil that meets the spec or is similar to, and on an older engine, you may not care. And I'll tell you right now, an older engine probably doesn't care. A 200,000 or 300,000 mile older V8 engine, do you really think it cares what oil it gets? No. And you may want to go up in weight, as is commonly done. I run 1540 often in like small block Chevys, and I have a buddy who doesn't have that engine anymore, but he would run 1540 in a TBI 454, and it brought back his oil pressure because the oil is thicker instead of running like a 1030 or a 520 or something like that. So these are considerations that you may make when you're deciding what to put it in. And I don't know specifically what vehicle you have. You may be watching because, you might have the exact vehicle I do, a 7.3 gas Ford. You may have a 6.7, of which that's the vehicle I had before, and I'm waiting on my new 6.7 to get built. And I'll be doing these exact recommendations that I'm saying to you with my new 6.7. I would never tell you guys to do one thing and then myself do another. I want to share exactly what I choose to do as, I would say, a relatively informed and I would say relatively experienced consumer. Caveat. I know nothing about supercars. Never owned one. I know nothing about Japanese imports. I've never owned one. I did own a Volkswagen Rabbit with an inline 5 with 350,000 miles for a while and had a lot of fun with it. I put Mobil 1 in it. That met it happened to meet the spec and it met the correct weight. I think it was 520. Whatever it was, it may have been 1030, whatever the heck it was. I don't have experience in those situations. I have a good bit of experience with older gasoline inline 4s, V6s, and V8s, and a good bit of experience with older to new inline 6 diesel Cummins or V8 diesel 6.7 Ford. I've never owned a 6.0. I've never owned a 6.4. My dad owned an LBZ for a good while, and I know a good bit about Duramaxes. I don't currently own a Duramax, but a lot of these things are going to apply. Check what GM recommends and stick to that if you can. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no such thing as a miracle oil. Buying one oil, as long as it's the right weight and largely meets the spec, it's not going to suddenly cause your engine to blow up. What I want to recommend that you do is that your purchasing decision for buying oil, buy what is most likely to always work for you. And I know that sounds really easy, but engines basically work. They weren't designed to not work. So in general, if you put clean oil in it, and that is the key, clean oil is everything to this conversation. It's not about the brand. Amazon Basics oil, as far as I know, is extremely good oil. Costco oil, extremely good oil. Some of these, knockoff brands like that, SuperTech, I think it is, still a great oil. Still meets a lot of specs, is a very good oil, and especially if you want to run. Anyway, I got cut off there. What really breaks engines is oil starvation is one of them. Oil starvation can happen from a failed pickup, a failed oil pump, clogged passages, which are leading to some portion of the engine not getting the oil flow that it deserves, or internal component failure, which is causing the clogging of passages, broken lifter, broken valve spring, things like that. Rubber component failing inside the engine and clogging up an oil passage, huge failure point for an older engine. That is one way you can break an engine. Another good way to break an engine is simply with dirty oil. Piston oil squirters are absolutely famous for this problem. In a lot of ways, if you clog up either the passage toward the piston oil squirter or the squirter itself, first of all, you're not going to be squirting oil onto your piston. You're going to have one piston that's going to start getting hotter than the rest. It's going to expand. It's going to start dragging the cylinder. Once it expands too far, your ring lands are going to grab together, and you're going to have a big problem because the ring is then going to be pushed out towards the cylinder wall, and then it's going to rip, and then it's going to rip a piece of piston off, and you're going to blow the motor up. That is a great way to break an engine, is a clogged passage, clogged piston oil squirter. Modern engines that have variable cam timing, those ports are extremely small. As soon as you get any kind of carbon fouling in there, you're going to start having your cam phaser issues, potentially rattling, for sure not phasing properly. Clean oil is everything, people. I could not possibly stress that enough. On these modern engines, 5,000-mile oil changes at flippin' most, period. Anyone who tells you that their oil is running 10 or 20,000 miles or advocating to do so, I'm advocating for that being not a good person to get information from. Here's the reason. Well, first of all, I just said it. The oil contamination in the oil is going to cause internal clogging of small passages, which is going to cause engine failure down the road. You can solve that for literally free. And when I say free, you have to do nothing besides spend the money on oil change. That's all you got to do. Literally the easiest thing in the world you could do for yourself. So change your oil often with the correct oil. Don't go spending twice as much on some brand that promises to blow your mind with incredible performance you're never going to feel. You can't feel any difference between one brand oil and another. What you are going to feel a difference in your pocketbook is your engine having a major catastrophic failure before 200,000 miles when you still own it. If you're only going to keep your truck 60,000 miles and then trade it in, a lot of this conversation doesn't really matter to you. Run anything you want. Probably not going to break anything. It's that 100 to 200,000 mile range where these things really start making a difference. And when you talk to, for instance, a 3.5 EcoBoost owner, one person has phasers fail every 10,000, 20,000 miles, every 30,000 miles, and then another guy who has no phaser failures in 300,000 miles. I guarantee you the guy with 300,000 miles is changing his oil at 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 miles, 5,000 at most. Changing your oil is everything. Everything, especially in a gasoline direct injected engine because of pollution from carbon deposits and from gasoline condensation on the cylinder wall that ends up in the oil and is polluting your engine oil. Also on a diesel with emissions because of overfueling. And not even just because of overfueling, you could have a diesel that is deleted or no emissions, a pre-emissions diesel. They still are going to have cylinder wall condensation of diesel at idle because the engine is running incredibly inefficiently and incredibly low temperature. You will end up with more and more diesel that is becoming a solvent in your oil and is not allowing the oil to work properly. It is so important to change your oil often, and it is even on pre-emissions diesels. It is just incredibly, incredibly important for a long life of your engine. All right, it's time for me to say what oil has generated through experience trust. Where I trust the oil, I trust to recommend it, I trust to use it. That is not saying that other oils in the same product sphere aren't equally capable. I'm just simply sharing the oils that I trust in my own vehicles that I've invested money in to be able to have, own, maintain, keep them on the road. I put this oil in, whether it be, and I'll mention each of the things I use it in. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you understand the complexity of making a video like this, because there are many options, and just because you choose one doesn't mean that the rest are bad. So it is a difficult thing to share an opinion on. In large ways, a lot of these are opinions, but they are opinions derived through experience using these oils in my vehicles for a long time, many hundreds of hours in each application, potentially hundreds of thousands of miles using one oil and not having any failures to report. So if it ever got to a point where the channel could support doing real world testing, and I'm not talking laboratory testing, I enjoy watching YouTube creators that make laboratory testing of oil. I enjoy that stuff. I'm a nerd. I'm not going to lie. I would like to do some to-failure testing and see if there's any real difference in the minutia between oils, both on road, on dynamometer, in abusive environments, two identical engines, and really try and constrain two or more identical engines, and really try and constrain the variables to find out if there's really a difference between oil. I would like to get to that point, but there are not two identical of my Cumminses floating around, one running Shell Rotella and the other one running Schaefer's, for instance. There aren't two of my trucks running side by side for the last 140,000 miles of my use in 10, 12 years, comparing the two side by side, each running one of the two oils. It's an impossible test to do because it becomes so cost prohibitive and just reality prohibitive. We're all busy, man. We all want to go out and have fun in the weekend. We don't want to be testing oils all the time. But if we could get to a point of really putting two or multiple things side by side, running different things and finding out if there is any difference, I would love to get to that point. So help me get there if you'd like to. Like, subscribe, comment, all those things are help grow the channel, and comment video ideas. I love taking your video ideas and challenging myself to form a video around them. Take care of yourselves and enjoy my recommendations. You are going to find, if you have a 7.3 liter Ford, it's recommending semi-synthetic 530 Motorcraft. And that is what I run in my truck, and I have the dealer change it. So every single one is done on the dealer's roster, so it's available to any dealer. If I were to break an engine in California and I bring the truck into the dealer, they're going to see that I did my oil changes back in Michigan. That's just what I'm going to do. And not only that, I feel that, or I am very confident that Motorcraft oil is going to protect just as well as anything else. I will happily run Motorcraft oil in things that aren't even Fords. Now, when it comes to 6.7s, I always ran the 1030 because I don't constitute severe duty. I don't live in the mountains. Here's the things that don't constitute severe duty. You live in the Arctic and it's extremely cold. You live in the Mojave Desert and it's extremely hot. Or you're towing up a mountain grade at max GVWR for the entire life of said oil change. Those are the things that would constitute a 540 or a 1540. You would use a 540 if you were, say, in Canada, it's cold. You would use a 1540 in, say, Nevada, it's hot. Or if you're running B20 continuously, as in biodiesel, it's extremely terrible on oil, and the thickness of oil actually gets thinner when you run biodiesel. It gets in the oil and thins out the mixture. So they have you run 540 or 1540. I don't run biodiesel if I can absolutely avoid it, and I will stick to that opinion and stick to that idea. We made biodiesel for a biodiesel competition in high school. It is extremely corrosive. It's awful stuff, and I don't have any intention of buying it. So that takes care of 6.7s. Ford recommends, and I trust absolutely the Ford Motorcraft oil. That's what I run. And trust is everything. This is a fun one. T4 is either widely hated or it's appreciated as being one of the best and most versatile oils you can possibly buy. It blows my mind when people hate on T4 because it performs extremely well in a lot of different things. It is extremely reliable. There are just, I will bet you there are billions of miles driven just in the United States, and potentially way more than that if you include Canada, proving that this oil has what it's got to keep working every single day. T4 is what I run in my Cummins, and I trust it immensely. It has only ever gotten T4. It is a wonderful oil. Tractor as well. All of my tractor related, all of them, my Farmall, my dad's B2630 has always been fed T4. My 3902 Kubota always been fed T4 after the first oil change, of course, because the oil that came in it was not T4. I trust that oil immensely. I will run it in anything that is, especially older. 1540 T4 and an older V8 engine is absolutely phenomenal. It is a wonderful engine, and it will keep your engine alive, in my opinion. So, moving on. I want to add super quick too, the T4 is extremely good at cold flow. It performs extremely well even compared to full synthetic oils and even 508 oils. If it is 1540 T4 versus 1540 other types of oil, it's still performing extremely well. T4 is a wonderful oil. Now, if you want to run full synthetic, T6 is a wonderful option. It tests extremely well. Many different oil tests in the real world where it actually matters. It is a very well-respected oil. It is one T4 and T6 sitting on the shelf. If you want to run conventional, pick up T4. If you want to run the T6, or if you want to run full synthetic, pick up the T6. If you want to run a semi-synthetic, pick up a T5. They're all wonderful oils. I would trust them immensely in any engine that I put them in. Like I said, I choose to put in the Ford oil into my vehicles, but if for some reason I wasn't worried about warranty, a Rotella would absolutely be ending up into my Ford 6.7. So where T4 is my go-to on the diesel and older work engine department, the Mobil 1 high mileage has always been my go-to for older, my V10, for instance, 6.0 Chevys, 5.3 Chevys. I have had excellent experience with Mobil 1 high mileage. That specific oil I put 200,000 or 300,000 miles on many different engines, and I'm pretty confident that this is the stuff that I put into my Rabbit when I had that. It's just never given me any problems. It has always done what I needed to do, never had a problem using it. So it is one that I would trust if I needed to have let's say I picked up another plow truck and I was going to change the oil. I would most likely pick up a Wix filter and a Mobil 1 high mileage oil to go with it to put into whatever it was. If the truck was struggling to maintain oil pressure, I would most likely pick up a T4 1540 and I put it into that engine. So just to give you an idea of my thought process there. Now, I am a little bit newer to running two-stroke outboards or outboards in general. I've gotten a little bit more into John boats and whatever as of late, and I have chosen to use the Marine Lucas oil mix oil. I've found that it doesn't smoke very much. It seems to protect the engines extremely well. Haven't had a failure running many different older engines, and a lot of them have had either hard lives or haven't been used in a long time. I've had really good luck using that oil, and I see no reason to try something else simply because I do, based upon my experience with Lucas Oil products and friends who use Lucas Oil products, whether it be on chainsaws or other two-stroke applications like outboards. I've never had or heard of a bad experience using Lucas Oil products. So I am still developing the trust in the two-stroke marine oil. However, so far, I trust it immensely. So take that for what you will. So again, we've talked about trust through my trust in with friends using Lucas for many different products and my use of it in a two-stroke application. When I got my very first four-stroke outboard, my choice to put in this oil, which does meet my Suzuki requirements for my 20 horsepower four-stroke outboard. I haven't had any trouble with it. It seems to be working as you might expect, not burning any oil. Very good things to say about that. That's what I'm using the four-stroke outboard. So again, developing trust with these two Lucas Oil products. However, based upon my experience in the past with Lucas Oil products and as well as with friends who use it, I have very positive things to say about it in terms of that. And so far using it in my own applications, again, nothing but positive things to say. So to finish off, just to make sure nobody thinks that I am an absolute AMSOIL hater, to which I'm not. I think you need to be extremely careful about claims being made, especially 10 or 20,000 mile oil change intervals. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I would never tell that to anyone who is searching for information. If you think that you know enough to make that choice and you want to base that off of oil testing results that are taking way less than a quart out of your engine oil, and you're assuming that that doesn't include whatever deposits are left in the engine within your passages, within your piston oil squirters, within your phasers. If you want to believe that test result should direct you to continue using something that is way past its prime, now let me tell you really quick, heat is the ultimate enemy to oil. Heat makes it turn dark. It isn't always or only the carbon that is in it from combustion. Heat causes it to get that color, that darker color, and as soon as the oil gets a darker color, you know that oil has been used. And with heat, you have a change in protective properties. It's well known. So I just want to caution really quick, please be very careful on your oil purchase. However, I'm going to say something very positive about AMSOIL. This is coming from, for instance, my 9767 Skidoo MXZ. I run AMSOIL Interceptor in it, and I will not run anything else because I don't believe that I want to take a risk with any other oil. Slight caveat, seen very good things from the Lucas Oil snowmobile oils. I would run that in a pinch. The Interceptor, I have many friends who have both Polaris and Skidoo older two-strokes, and the Interceptor has always proven to keep them alive in what I would call extreme. Like, snowmobile has a really hard life, and especially now that they're 20-something years old, 26 potentially, 24, 25, 26 years old, and making, for instance, my 670 makes like, I think it's 115 to 125 horsepower. The fact that it's still alive on a factory engine is absolutely incredible. My buddy has a 670 with now, I think, approaching 7,000 miles on the stock engine using AMSOIL Interceptor. I've seen nothing but great things out of this specific oil in a very specific application, which is older two-strokes. I haven't changed over my new Skidoo. I'm still running Skidoo oil. That may change in the future upon more research and maybe some more digging and finding out some other people's experience and trust in different oils. But I'm telling you, from a 90s Skidoo, and a 90s snowmobile perspective, I think the AMSOIL Interceptor is an extremely fine product, and I trust it. So take that for what you will.